Thank you for joining me on this video about fear and how to overcome it, why we have fear, where it begins, and how to move past it, no matter how deep and how gripping it might seem like it is. I know for myself, fear can literally paralyze me, and it can be very difficult. I know that fear is what stops a lot of people from actually living their dreams, creating their reality, and meeting their destiny and their destination. And fear is one of the things that comes up most often in people. It steals joy, it steals dreams, and it's an illusion. So today I want to share with you exactly how to move beyond fear. I'm going to give you tools to actually move beyond this fear. And in addition to that, I'm going to share what is going on and help you to get some insight as to where you are and where you want to be, why the fear is showing up, all of that. I'm Sherry Hemstreet of thesherryhemstreet.com, and this is a big subject. This is a huge subject for me. I feel like I could talk about this for a very, very long time. But let's dive into, first of all, what is going on when we're in fear. When we're going and can feel the energy of fear in our body, when we are in that state, when we can actually acknowledge that we're in fear, it is because we are facing an unknown circumstance. This is simply our limbic system working as designed. And while it's working as designed, that's our 3D physical self. But there's our whole spiritual self that's like, no, we want to do this. We want to do this. We want to do this. We can do this. And then there's our soul that's like, right between the spirit and the body. And it's like back and forth. Which way do I go? Which way do I go? And this is why, for me, I get paralyzed. But often this will show up as anxiety. This can show up as procrastination. This can show up in so many ways. It's not important how it shows up, but what you do with it is important. And here's what I know. I know most people are going to watch this video because they want to feel good. And I know most people are going to watch this video because they want the knowledge. And the knowledge is so good. I promise you, the knowledge is so good. But you cannot intellectualize your life. You cannot live it only up here. And what I mean by that is it's not enough to hear me talk about this. For those of you that are joining me, if you actually do the exercises, you're going to have a breakthrough. And I know this because these are the same exercises that clients pay me $30,000 to go through. I want this to be available to you. I want you to have a breakthrough. I want you to understand that there is nothing bigger than you, including your fear. There is nothing bigger than the desire put in your heart by Spirit, by Creator. That desire that you have is meant to be yours. It is meant to be lived. It is meant to be believed and known and trusted and acted upon with inspired action. But fear is so easy. And what we want to do is just delete the doubt. Just like if we could just push a delete button and be done with doubt, that would be fantastic. That would be amazing. But it's not necessarily that easy. You see, we get into uncertainty. We don't know the path that we're going. We don't know how this is going to turn out. And we start getting all of these questions of like, what if, and oh no, and how's it going to happen? And more than anything, it comes down to failure. Fear comes down to failure. We're afraid of failing. And it's because of that I want to share that you have never failed. Failing is not even a possibility. Failing is not something that is even possible. It's not in the realm of possibility. Failure is not who you are. And I'm going to say this, and you're thinking these things and you're like, Sherry, I failed at plenty of things. You haven't. You haven't. You have never been a failure, and you've never failed at anything, because failure is a 0-point binary label. What you're calling failure, you learned something out of. What people label as failure, you have grown through. What people label as failure is action. It's stepping into the unknown and not knowing where it's going to go. And while it might not have worked the first time, the second time, the 33rd time, the 340th time, none of those were failures. They were absolute ways that you understood wouldn't get you where you wanted to go. So I want you to understand failure is never going to happen. You're always going to learn something from it, but it's up to you to decide what you do from that. What do you do with that? And even beyond that, just understand that while you may not see the entire path ahead of you, I want you to just go as far as you can see. And when you get there, just trust that the next part of the journey is going to be revealed, because it always is. It always is revealed. And it doesn't matter if you can see the whole path. As you start to trust and as you start to move into the journey, you will see the whole path. And this is where you don't have to worry about the how. You just trust. You just follow the inspiration. You move on to the next thing. Now, I don't know what you're going through right now. I don't know what you're in deep fear about or what you've been in fear about before. I, myself, I still experience deep fear. Everyone does. Every single person on this planet still experiences deep fear. Fear doesn't go away. That's what nobody talks about. It's just something that we learn to dance with. It's something that we learn to be present with. It's something that we learn to acknowledge and move through regardless of how we feel or what we think about it, because we know in our heart, we know in our soul, we know in our own constitution that this is the way for us to go. And usually fear only comes about when it's something really, really big. So if you're facing something really, really big and you're afraid, it is okay. It is okay to be afraid. If you are ready to step out in faith, if you are ready to step out in fear, if you are ready to answer the call or the mission or the purpose that has been placed in your heart, fear is to be expected. Now, I still feel fear lots of times. There's so many things that I'm just like, oh, I just don't want to do that. Tell me I don't have to do that. And I wait. I make peace with it. But I know this. I know the fear is not bigger than the mission. I know the fear is not bigger than the payoff. And I know the fear is not bigger than me. And it takes practice. And the first couple times it feels really uncomfortable, but you get used to it. And as you get used to it, you grow and you expand and you become stronger in your knowing, in your faith, in your intuition, in your trust, in yourself, and your trust in Creator. Because these things are given to you from your higher self, from the highest source, from the Most High. And that is the highest calling. That is the highest answer. That is the highest response. And that's the space that we want to be in. So I want to equip you to move into that space powerfully, very powerfully. So what you're going to do, the first exercise, I want you to get a piece of paper. This doesn't work. You can't do it in your head. I want you to get a piece of paper, and I want you to just brain dump every fear that you have about what you're currently going through, what you are facing. I want you to just make an exhaustive list. Write everyone down, number them on a paper. It could be a notebook, it could be whatever you want. I want you to go through and do that. You can stop this, pause this, do whatever you need to do. Once you've written down every single fear that you have about where you're going, what you're doing, what your next step is, whatever it is, you have a list here. And it may be complete, it may not. More may come up or more may not. But I understand that it can be a little daunting. It can be a little intimidating to see all of these fears on paper. Just take a deep breath. Stay with me. You see, fear wins because we are not willing to face it, because it's fear. Because we think, and we've been told by so many gurus out there, like, don't think the bad thoughts, don't think what you don't want. But I'm going to teach you something today that is going to give you freedom. It is going to set you free. You can think all the bad thoughts you want, unless there is intention behind it, and unless you take action behind it, and unless there is alignment behind it, and unless it is destined for you, it's not going to happen. Now, you're going to get everything you worry about because you are putting energy into it. And fear is a great energy. It's as powerful as love. So you're going to get everything you worry about, but you're not going to get everything you fear. So while this list might be a little intimidating, I'm going to lead you through a process that's going to completely dissolve the fears. You have to do the work. You can't just say, okay, I get it, and go through the process thinking you have it. You have to do the process. So what I want you to do is I want you to read out loud the first thing that you're afraid of. First thing you're afraid of. And whatever that might be, I want you to feel the fear associated with that. So it could be, I'm afraid that I will lose my job if I start my business, or I'm afraid that if I quit my job and start my business, I will be homeless because I won't make it, because I could fail, right? And I want you, whatever your fear is, right? Like, I'm just using that as an example. I want you to feel that fear. Just feel the fear. Feel it in your body. Just feel it. Just be with it. It's uncomfortable, but that's okay. Discomfort isn't pain. Being uncomfortable doesn't actually hurt you. It's just a feeling. It's a GPS to let you know, like, hey, we actually don't want to go that way, but we're going to. We're going to, because the way through, say it with me, the way through is the way to go, right? You get there by going through it. So you're going to get to your destination by going through the fear. Not avoiding it, not bypassing it, not pushing it down, not stuffing it down, not ignoring it and pretending it doesn't exist, because that's a toxic positivity trait. So that first fear that you have written down, I want you to feel it. Let yourself sit with fear. Just like you can sit with someone you dislike, just like you can sit with an enemy, just like you can sit in front of something you would rather not be seeing. You can sit with fear. You have that power to sit with fear. Just sit with it. Now, we're going to explore it. Now, you can keep your eyes open for this if you like, or you can close them, you can pause this, you can stop this, whatever works for you. But what you're going to do now is you're going to feel in your body, and you're going to imagine in your imagination the absolute worst case scenario, how bad it could possibly get if you go down that route. See, I'm not sure how bad you think it can get, and I'm not sure how bad it could possibly get. But when I think of quitting a job to start a business and I get no clients and then I could end up homeless, I think, are my daughter and I going to be living in a refrigerator box somewhere? Now, that's a little ridiculous, and I have a husband, and there are so many things that this won't happen for. But I literally had that thought when I was quitting my job to start my business. You know, I had a contract job, and I was like, this is a safety net, right? And even though that was a form of business, it was contract, so it felt like more, you know, I was stopping the one contract I had. So, and it was a very big contract, but yeah, like I remember thinking, like, what am I going to do if we end up homeless? Can we live in our car? What those thoughts are is the pathway to exploration. So I want you, whatever your fear is, I want you to think of that fear. And I want you to imagine the very worst it could get. I mean, take 5 or 10 minutes and literally go down that pathway. Just go down that pathway. Think about how bad it would feel. Think about how terrible it would feel for people to find out. Think about how embarrassed you could feel. Think about how disempowered you could feel. Think about how people would respond to you or view you. Think about all of the things that are associated with that. How will we eat? How will we get by? Where will we go to the bathroom? And I want you to think of make it the very worst it could ever be. Just absurdly bad. Absurdly bad. And once you do that, allow yourself to feel this. Allow it to become real in your mind. Because what happens is, because we are not willing to face the fear head on, we are not willing to acknowledge it, we are not willing to go through it, right? Because we are not willing to go through it energetically, emotionally, physically, mentally, it has power over us. But when you allow yourself to dive into the fear, to envelop yourself in the fear, to hold the truth of the fear, to explore the fear at the highest level of disaster, catastrophe even, all of that gives you power. And if you've explored this, and if you've seen what it's like, even if it's in your imagination, it can no longer hold the power or the level of fear. It just simply can't. And so once you do that, I want you to really allow yourself to go as far down the road with that as you can. And then when you're done, stop and come back and go, okay, I see how bad it can get. But now I'm going to see how good it can get. And I want you to go the opposite way. I want you to go to how good it could possibly get. And here's the thing. For as much time as you spent going down the road that was the path of how bad it could possibly be, I want you to go down the road of how good it could possibly be. Well, if I start my business, I could spend more time with my daughter. If I start my business, I could end up making more money than this contract. If I start my business, I could end up making some really great connections and friends. If I start my business, I could end up having really wealthy clients and charging a lot of money. If I start my business, I could buy my own home. I could start another business. I could create investments. I want you to start imagining all of the possibility that comes from the positive side of this. And I want you to really flesh it out in your imagination and feel it. Feel it fully. And some people are going to be able to do this in their imagination. Some people are going to be able to envision it. Some people are going to need to talk through it out loud because they need to hear themselves. Some people will need to write it. It doesn't matter to me how you do it, and it doesn't matter how you do it. What matters is that you do it in the way that's best for you. So you've gone down the path of how good this could possibly be. You're going to do that with each and every fear. And here's what's going to happen. Because how it ends is how it was. So each time you go down the bad path, right? Your brain has explored that, but conversely, you went the other way. And how it ends is how your brain remembers it. And this is the brain trick that is just phenomenal. I cannot get, this is my favorite brain hack. I love it. And I'm a bit of a brain junkie, a bit of a psychology junkie. Yes, I love all things spirit and psychology, but this is it, right? So for each one, you're going to go down the path of ultimate catastrophe and disaster. And then you're going to go to the very polar opposite of how good could this possibly be? What is the highest outcome, the most extraordinary thing I could experience? And people are going to say, but Sherry, isn't that opening the energy for each one? No, it's not. Because how it ends is how it was. How it ends is how it was. Right? That's it. How it ends is how it was. Now, you've, to your mind, lived through the worst thing ever. So it dissolves the fear. The fear no longer has power. And then when you travel down the best case possible path scenario, the highest outcome ever, the most extraordinary experience you could even imagine or fathom, you've then opened the possibility for all of those amazing things. And yes, this sounds like energetic woo-woo, and yes, this sounds like a little bit of craziness, but what do you have to lose? You're not moving right now. You're in fear right now. Your dreams are not within your grasp right now. You cannot pull them toward you, and you cannot go to meet them. Because between you and your dream, between you and your desire, between you and where you want to be, there is a gap. And that gap is filled with fear. And that fear has power over you. It has power over your mind, has power over your soul, your energy, your body, physically, mentally, financially, emotionally, spiritually. And this is going to release that fully and completely. Fully and completely. And you're going to get great results. In fact, I want to hear about it. I want to hear about the results. Let me know if you're doing this below. Reach out to me. Share with me. Another thing that you can do is for each fear you have, come up with 3 reasons why that's not true, why it's just not true. Most of our fears are so easily untrue and proven untrue that it takes one different perspective and it's gone. So that's another way that you can do this. I don't like that way quite as much. It's more cerebral, more intellectual. And I feel the other way, the first way that I shared with you, has incredibly much more power. But many people like the intellectual and the cerebral, and it works for them. So if you're highly intellectual and cerebral, then you want to actually do that one. If you can do the first one where you go down each path, that's amazing. Do that. If you're more intellectual, you may need to do the second one where you just come up with 3 reasons something isn't true for every fear you have. You have the list in front of you. It's very easy to do and go through. And at the end of it, you will have balanced both sides of fear and not fear. And that's what happens. You'll actually have more energy on the side of not fear, of why it's not true, that will allow you to drain the power from the situation you feel the fear of. Now, you have a choice. You have to do something. And doing nothing is still a choice. You can ignore this. You can take action. Very few people will. And that just breaks my heart, because I see so many people with dreams that are just right there for them. They just have to step out a little further. Just a little further. Just step out in faith. Take the first couple steps. Creator will meet you. But some people won't do that. Right now, I want you to make the choice that you're doing this. Right now, I want you to make the choice that you're winning. Right now, I want you to make the choice that you are more than the fear you're facing. I want you to make the choice that you have the power to create your reality. You have the power to step into your dreams, and you have the power to receive everything you're asking for that's in your heart. And it all starts right